The waves roared that evening, restless and wild, as if the ocean itself carried the weight of 1,000 untold stories. On the empty stretch of golden sand, a man sprinted barefoot, his heart pounding not just from the run but from the fear clawing inside his chest. He wasn't running for himself. He was running because someone's life depended on him. Her body lay motionless near the shoreline, the water tugging at her limbs as though the sea was unwilling to let her go. He dropped to his knees, hands trembling, and without hesitation pressed his palms against her chest, fighting against the silence of her still heart. "Come back," he whispered through clenched teeth, his voice breaking. "Breathe, please breathe." That man was Daniel, a single dad who had already fought battles no one else had seen. He knew loss, he knew fear. He couldn't let death win again, not when he was staring into the face of a stranger who might still have a chance at life. And in that desperate moment, as his breath filled her lungs and his heartbeat pressed against her ribcage, fate quietly tied two lives together. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Whispers of Kinness so you never miss stories that touch the soul and inspire the heart. Her name was Isabella Hartley. To the world, she was untouchable, the brilliant billionaire heiress who had built empires from her family's fortune, commanding boardrooms and headlines with an elegance that left others in awe. But on that day, stripped of power, drowning in the sea, she was just a woman caught between life and death. Daniel didn't know her name. He didn't care about her wealth or her fame. All he saw was a fragile chest struggling to rise, a pale face slowly gaining color as he worked against time itself. When her eyes finally fluttered open, ocean blue and filled with confusion, he let out a shaky breath, relief washing over him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "You're safe?" he whispered, his voice raw, his face inches from hers. "You're safe now." For a moment, she thought he was an angel. But then she saw his trembling hands, the beads of sweat running down his brow, and she realized he was just a man who refused to let a stranger die. Daniel lived a modest life. A carpenter by trade, he spent his mornings sanding wood, his evenings cooking for his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, and his nights tucking her in with stories that always ended with hope. Life hadn't been easy since his wife's passing, but Lily was his world, his anchor. The next day, Isabella found herself searching for him. Her security team wanted to dismiss it. Why would a billionaire chase after a stranger on a beach? But Isabella couldn't let go of the memory of his voice, the fire in his eyes when he brought her back from the edge. She found him in a small coastal workshop, surrounded by shavings of cedar and the smell of varnish. He didn't recognize her at first. To him, she was just the woman he saved. To her, he was the only man who had ever looked at her and seen a person, not a headline. "Thank you," she said softly, watching him lift his eyes from the wood. "You didn't just save me. You reminded me what it means to be alive." Daniel simply nodded, wiping his hands on a rag. Anyone would have done the same. But she knew that wasn't true. Most people would have panicked, frozen, or looked away. He didn't. He fought for her. And in that quiet workshop, surrounded by the simplicity of his world, Isabella felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. As days turned to weeks, Isabella kept coming back, sometimes with excuses, commissioning furniture, asking about woodwork, pretending she needed help with repairs. Other times, she came with no excuse at all, just sitting silently while Daniel worked and Lily chattered away about school and fairy tales. Lily adored her instantly, calling her Miss Bella, and Isabella, despite her empire, felt humbled by the child's innocent trust. She had attended countless charity galas and boardroom meetings, but none of them compared to sitting on a worn-out stool, sharing homemade soup with a little girl who believed kindness was the greatest treasure in the world. But love stories are never free of shadows. The world eventually noticed. Headlines screened with billionaire heiress spotted with local carpenter. Cameras followed her, critics whispered, and even Daniel began to fear the storm closing in. "You don't belong in my world," he told her one evening, his voice breaking as he watched Lily sleep. "And I don't belong in yours. You deserve someone who can walk beside you without feeling small." Isabella's eyes burned with tears. "Daniel, when you saved me, you didn't ask if I was rich or poor. You didn't care about anything but life. Why should love be any different?" But his pride, his scars, his fear of being not enough, held him back. For weeks he pulled away, convincing himself it was for the best. Isabella, for the first time, felt powerless, not in business, but in love. 2. The turning point came one stormy night. Lily fell ill, her fever rising dangerously fast. Daniel, frantic and alone, rushed her to the hospital. To his shock, Isabella was already there, waiting. She had heard from a neighbor and dropped everything to be by their side. She held Lily's hand, whispered stories to soothe her, and stood beside Daniel as the doctors worked. Hours later, when Lily finally smiled weakly and said, "Daddy, Miss Bella stayed with me the whole time," Daniel broke. His walls, his fears, his doubts, all crumbled, because in that moment he saw the truth. Isabella wasn't a billionaire in his daughter's eyes. She wasn't unreachable. She was family. The world tried to pull them apart again and again. Gossip columns mocked them. Investors doubted Isabella's judgment. Some even accused Daniel of being a gold digger. But through every trial, Isabella stood tall, her hand in his, proving that love doesn't measure bank accounts. It measures hearts. And when she finally looked into Daniel's eyes, on that same beach where their story began, she whispered, "You saved my life once, but now you've given me a reason to truly live." He kissed her, the waves roaring behind them, not as a reminder of the day she almost died, but as a witness to the day they both began to truly live.